Hello and welcome to the third episode of Amorous Histories. I'm Annie Harrison, thank you for joining me, and thank you to everyone who has supported me so far with social media follows, likes and shares. Hopefully you'll like what you hear and keep spreading the word. And if you haven't already found my social media pages, I am at Amorous Histories on Instagram and Facebook, and at Amorous Hist Pod on Twitter. I also have a website, amoroushistoriespodcast.wordpress.com, where you can find show transcripts and my sources. I have to apologise for taking so long to get this episode out. I've been a bit ill with various things, and sometimes when I get home from work I've used up all my spoons and have no energy left, as much as I love researching random sex history. I had hoped to put out an episode every other week. I just need to pin down a day and say, right, I'll publish every Friday or every other Sunday, something like that. We'll see how it goes. After all, I'm doing this for fun and for free, so I can't necessarily keep to strict schedules like podcasts made by people who are doing it as part of their job. This newbie is just going to keep on rolling and see what happens. I said I was going to do some spooky, sexy topics for October, and I got excited about vampires and witches. But then a few days after I recorded episode 2, I remembered that actual ghost sex was a thing. If you're in the UK, you're probably familiar with This Morning. It's a weekly TV chat show with an interesting mix of guests. It's gained a bit of a reputation for talking about sex, especially different types of sex, whilst viewers sit down for their mid-morning tea and biscuits. Anyway, I remember a few years ago they had a guest talking about having sex with ghosts. So I did a quick Google to see if that was a thing, and of course it is. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Right, let's define terms first. Spectrophilia can be used in reference to sexual arousal at seeing images in a mirror, or sexual attraction to and sex with ghosts. In this instance, we're talking about the latter. Before I properly started my research, I checked the term spectrophilia on Google Ngram. If you don't know what Google Ngram is, it's a search engine that trawls the internet for books that include your search term or terms, and then it creates a graph from the data collected. I'll link to it and a much better explanation in my show notes. It brings nerds like me great joy. Anyway, I was surprised to see that the Ngram first finds the term in circa 1960, probably from Dr. Schmidt's Sex Dictionary and Lexicon of Related Emotions, published in 1954. I had assumed it was a word used before the mid-20th century. So then I thought, I'll check the dictionary for its origins, but alas, spectrophilia isn't in the English dictionary. However, you know what words are in the dictionary? Succubus and incubus. And that's important because they are both evil spirits who have sex with humans whilst they sleep. So although all three words have different meanings, they do tend to sometimes be used interchangeably. A succubus is a seductive female spirit demon ghost thing, and an incubus is a seductive male spirit demon ghost thing. And they both seduce humans into otherworldly sex. This made me realise that I need to look at the history of sex with demons too, as spectrophilia is probably a modern incarnation of that. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I had first heard about ghost sex on a UK TV show, and took it to be in the same vein as the woman who was having sex with a tree. I was sceptical, but it turns out anyone who's anyone is having spectral sex. In 1999, actor Lucy Liu told Us Weekly magazine, "I was sleeping on my futon on the floor, and some sort of spirit came down from God knows where and made love to me. It was sheer bliss. I felt everything. I climaxed, and then he floated away. It was almost like what might have happened to Mary. That's how it felt. Something came down and touched me, and now it watches over me." In 2004, model Anna Nicole Smith had an interview with FHM magazine. They asked, "What's the kinkiest sex you've ever had?" And she replied, "Well, a ghost would crawl up my leg and have sex with me at an apartment a long time ago in Texas. I used to think it was my boyfriend. And one day I woke up and it wasn't. It was like a spirit, and it, woo, miming a ghost flying from her bed sheets, went up. I was freaked out about it, but then I was like, well, you know what? He's never hurt me, and he's just gave me some amazing sex, so I have no problem. The interviewer replied, "You're sure that wasn't a dream?" And Anna Nicole said, "It was not a dream because it was happening every night. One night, almost at daylight, and that was the time my boyfriend went to work. I had woken up because I felt it coming up my leg and I saw it. I told my boyfriend and he didn't believe me." In 2012, Kesha told radio host Ryan Seacrest that she had had a sexual experience with a ghost, and that had inspired her song Supernatural. And in 2014, Dan Aykroyd of the 1980s Ghostbuster fame told Esquire magazine that he had spooned a male ghost in his bed, saying, "Maybe that guy was gay and he wanted to have some fun. I'd be surprised if I was his type, but when you're dead, you'll take what you can get." Insert queer eye roll here. If you've seen the 1984 Ghostbusters, you may remember the completely random scene where Dan Aykroyd's character gets a BJ from a ghost. The less said on that subject, the better. These aren't the only examples. Just Google celeb ghost sex and you will find various articles documenting who said what about haunted hookups. As I write, the internet is trying to get its head around the latest spectrophilic This Morning interview with singer Brocard, who said she is in a relationship with the ghost of a Victorian soldier called Eduardo. So, clearly this is in the public consciousness of the Western world, but can we trace it back through history, and does it appear in multiple cultures? You may have heard the term succubus and incubus before now. Essentially, they're two sides of the same coin. A succubus is a demon or spirit that takes the shape of a woman in order to have sex with a human man, and an incubus is a demon or spirit that takes the form of a man to have sex with a human woman. Apparently, you don't get gay demons or spirits. A demon or spirit can take the form of either a man or a woman. They're not always subscribed to a certain sex. For example, at first, a demon could present as a woman and seduce a man, and after he has ejaculated, the demon would take his sperm and then present as a man, have sex with a woman, and impregnate her with a demon baby using the first human man's ejaculate, if that makes sense. Succubi and incubi are not demons or spirits in their own right, rather types of demons. The word incubus comes from the Latin incubus, nightmare, and incubar, to lie upon, weigh upon, or brood. Succubus comes from the Latin succubar, to lie beneath. Supposedly, this comes from the belief that heterosex is best done missionary, with the man lying on top and the woman lying beneath. You know, how the Judeo-Christian God intended. And if the description of an incubus is making you think of Fuseli's painting The Nightmare, yes, exactly, you're correct. And if you're thinking, what painting, Annie? I'll of course share it in my show notes and on my social media platforms. But basically, it's a famous 18th century painting by the Swiss artist Fuseli of a little demon sitting on the chest of a sleeping woman. It caused quite a stir when it was first exhibited in London. It's very striking and unsettling, so I can understand why. Right, let's meet Lilith. In Jewish folklore and Mesopotamian mythology, Lilith is a demon, a seductress and a murderer. According to the Jewish Women's Archive Encyclopedia, she was known in many Middle Eastern cultures, appearing in the Book of Isaiah, Babylonian Talmud, and incarnation bowls from ancient Iraq and Iran. The alphabet of Ben Sira, a medieval Jewish text, describes her as Adam's first wife, who disobeyed him and God and asserted her equality to Adam, choosing to leave the Garden of Eden instead of lie beneath him. In the Kabbalah, she is an evil reflection of the feminine aspect of God. In Babylonian society, there were demons called Liliths. They were evil spirits who were once human but had died young. They would seduce adults at night as well as murder and eat children. Liliths would appear in the female form, succubi, to have sex with men at night and harvest their sperm. Men were told they were particularly susceptible to this if they were sleeping in the house alone. To women, Lilith would appear in the male form, incubi, to have sex with and possibly impregnate them with demon seed. Incantation bowls featuring depictions of Lilith were used to rid these demons from households or any possessed persons. Although Lilith and her demons are not ghosts, they do fall into the realm of supernatural, and I can see them as the precursor to the modern-day spectrophilia. After all, a ghost effed me sounds a lot more believable than one of Lilith's demons effed me to 21st century Western ears. Also, Lilith definitely needs her own episode. Right, so Lilith isn't the only succubus out there. Tales of sexual visitations in the night span across history and cultures. I'm going to read a bit of a long quote now because it demonstrates this so well. In an article called Unusual Cases of Succubus, a cultural phenomenon manifesting as part of psychopathology, published in the Industrial Psychiatry Journal, Sandeep Gover, Asim Mehira, and Devakshi Jua write, in Arabic culture there are descriptions of jinns, who are thought to be sex demons. According to African beliefs, men who experience having sex with a succubus in dreams, usually in the form of a beautiful woman, they find themselves exhausted as soon as they awaken. The Alp of Teutonic or German folklore is one of the better known. In Zanzibar, Popobawa primarily attacks men and generally behind closed door. In Hungary, a Liderates can be a satanic lover that flies at night and appears as a fiery light, or in its more benign form as a featherless chicken. In Swedish folklore, there are the Mara or mare, a spirit or goblin that rides on the chests of humans whilst they sleep, giving them bad dreams or nightmares. Belief in the mare goes back to the Norse Ynglinga saga from the 13th century. In Turkish culture, incubus is known as Karabasan. In India, the succubus is referred to as Yakashini. 36 different types of Yakashini are described in the texts of Tantras, who fulfill the different desires of human beings. End quote. Apologies if I butchered any of those pronunciations. I did just listen to them beforehand. These beliefs aren't confined to history. Many people still claim to experience supernatural sex. Zanzibar's Popobawa is a great example of this. Popobawa, Swahili for batwing, is a demon who reportedly stalks the people, mostly men, of Zanzibar and other parts of Tanzania. The demon takes the form of a giant bat who comes at night and sexually assaults victims, especially men that are alone. In an attempt to avoid the demon when it's in the area, people will abandon their homes at night and sleep around a campfire in their village. In a 2005 Reuters report by William McLean, a Popobawa encounter is described by a female resident of Macho Man village. I felt someone fondling me. I felt very cold. I felt weak. I couldn't call out for help to my husband who was lying asleep beside me. Popobawa is strong. He really presses down on you, and it took such a long time. 1 hour. Eventually I lost consciousness, and I was one of many who were attacked. Some of you may be thinking that that sounds similar to sleep paralysis. Hold on to that thought. Popobawa is a relatively new demon on the scene. The first known report of this bat-winged spirit is from the mid-1960s, making it an infant compared to Lilith. Communities still experience visits from Popobawa, sometimes leading to panics, quote-unquote. Strangely, these visits seem to sync up with political elections, and many people within an area will report similar experiences within a short amount of time, unlike the isolated reports of ghost sex. So, are people really experiencing visitations from amorous apparitions, or is something else happening? Those who don't believe that ghosts have been having sex with the likes of Lucy Liu and Kesha put forward the suggestion that those who've had these encounters actually had sleep paralysis. The Sleep Foundation characterises sleep paralysis as a temporary inability to move that occurs right after falling asleep or waking up. Individuals remain unaware during episodes, which frequently involve troubling hallucinations and a sensation of suffocation. And what I learned in the process of researching this episode is that absolutely anyone can experience sleep paralysis, regardless of their health or sleep patterns, and it might just be a one-off thing that never happens again. One of the defining features of sleep paralysis is the inability to move. You may be awake, be able to open your eyes and be aware of what's happening around you, but you're stuck. You can't move and you can't make a noise. As of 2018, an estimated 75% of people experiencing sleep paralysis had hallucinations that were noticeably different to dreams. These hallucinations can be categorized in 3 different ways. Intruder hallucinations, when the sufferer thinks a dangerous person or presence is in the room. Chest pressure hallucinations, also called incubus hallucinations, where people feel like they're being suffocated. These frequently occur with intruder hallucinations. And finally, vestibular motor hallucinations, where people feel like they're moving or having an out-of-body sensations, but they can't actually move. Attacks of sleep paralysis can last from a few seconds to 20 minutes, with the average length being between 6 and 7 minutes. Scientists have theorized that those who think they've been touched sexually by a ghost or demon are feeling this way because our bodies naturally become, shall we say, aroused multiple times a night. So wet dreams and hard-ons. And the spiritual encounters coincidentally happen at the same time as the sleep paralysis, leading to the idea that a ghost just gave you an orgasm. Now, the question is, after hearing how closely sleep paralysis matches the supernatural experiences of those mentioned in this episode, do you think that they're having sex with ghosts and demons, or are they experiencing sleep paralysis? I don't know, and I'm not going to answer my own question because I don't think it's for me to say. There are striking similarities between historic and modern reports of sexual encounters with demons and ghosts, and these reports match some aspects of sleep paralysis. Obviously, from where I'm sitting right now, the idea of a bat-winged demon having sex with me is pretty far-fetched, but in other cultures it's not. Likewise, the idea that a ghost might have sex with me is also pretty far-fetched. But recently, I've definitely opened up to the idea that there are many things we just don't know about. So who am I to say that ghosts don't exist? I can't answer that question because it's just not possible. Anyway, rambling over. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And again, I'm sorry it took so long to get out. I've finally made it onto iTunes, so you can find me on all the main podcast sites that I can access from the UK. If you've liked this episode, you can leave me a little review or some stars on your podcast app or website. You can also follow my socials at Amorous Histories on Instagram and Facebook, and at Amorous Histpod on Twitter. And my show notes / transcript is at amoroushistoriespodcast.wordpress.com. Feel free to DM me or email amoroushistories@gmail.com if you have any questions or suggestions, such as don't try and record your podcast so late at night when you're really tired. I think I've covered everything there. So with that, have a safe Halloween and speak soon.